Good morning and welcome to our series, How to Start a Career in Data Protection. Thank you for making our time to learn with us, and we'll be taking you through a step by step guide on how to start your career in data protection. So, our agenda for today's training will include how to pick a niche in data protection, how to prepare a CV for a data protection officer job role, skills required as a data protection officer, certifications required in data protection, and what are the roles data protection officer are expected to perform when employed. So picking a niche in data protection, you have to think of two things. It's either you are going in as an employee or you are going in as a consultant. Today's training will focus on people who want to take up training and certifications and also want to pursue their career as employee. We'll also have a special training for people who want to take up data protection as consultant. But we'll focus today on starting as an employee. So these are key statistics that I also want participants to be aware of. Less than 3,000 companies have filed their report with the Nigeria Data Protection Commission, and that number is still far below the threshold because from CAC statistics, we have about 3.1 million organizations in Nigeria registered. So that means we'll be looking at minimum of 3.1 million and data protection officers. And as of today, we have only 3,000 companies, less than 3,000 companies that have filed in their report. And those 3,000 companies, not all companies have certified data protection officers. So there is a gap, a skill gap in data protection. And from statistics, Nigeria has less than 10,000 certified data protection officers. And don't forget, some of these certified data protection officers have left Nigeria for better job opportunities. So we still have less than 10,000, you understand. So Nigerians that are certified in data protection from statistics from the NDPC is less than 10,000. And some have left Nigeria for better job opportunities. And for Nigeria to be able to attain that data protection compliance status, we need a minimum of 500,000 certified data protection officers. So we have a whole lot to do, and there's opportunity for people who have the skill set to take up job roles as data protection officers. Now, if we are going to focus on starting as an employee, we also need to pick what sector to go into. Is it the public sector or the private sector? For me, I will prefer the private sector because of the opportunities private sector present. I'm not ruling out the public sector, but I personally will advise any upcoming data protection officer to look at the private sector, and I'm going to give reasons why I taken that private sector option. So when you look at the private sector, there is what we call competitive salary and performance driven incentive, unlike the public sector. So for you to come into data protection, of course, you want the salary to be worth the stress because you'll be doing a whole lot. And in the public sector, your salary is sometimes fixed based on your cadre. But in the private sector, the salary is competitive. So based on your competence, you can also get better offers. So from statistics and data we have, private sector pay data protection officers more. Also, your career advancement is better in the private sector because you don't need to wait for certain periods to get promoted. Once they see you are skillful in the job, you could also climb the ladder in your corporate organization. So, career advancement is more positioned in the private sector. And when you look at innovation and flexibility, the private sector leads innovation. If you look at the banking, if you look at the healthcare sector, you look at the public and private, you see that the private sector is leading. You understand? Businesses run by private organizations tend to be more profitable, tend to innovate faster, tend to adopt technology faster. And these are things data protection officers need to excel in their career. So I stand for the private sector. Look at the private sector as your career option. Then you also have a dynamic work environment. In the private sector, your work is dynamic, it's not fixed, you understand, compared to the public sector. So you meet more challenges, you learn more skills, you meet more risk. And also from those risks, you build your experience, you understand. You meet more technology, and these are what data protection officers need to excel: a dynamic work environment. And investment in employee development is more in the private sector. You tend to have more trainings, you tend to have more budget for capacity building, and private sector value training for their employees compared to the public sector. And you have more exposure because you could be sent out of the country to gain more skills, and all this builds your portfolio in terms of experience and exposure. However, if you look for job stability, you could look at the public sector. But to me, more people in the private sector that have taken up data protection officer role value working in the private sector. They hardly want to switch to the public sector. So it's up to you to make your choice. This is just an advice. So now let's assume we've decided to go with the private sector. We have to also look at a niche that is in line with our career aspirations. Everybody has an aspiration, and everybody has areas of core competence. So I'm going to be explaining some of the top niches where data protection officers are really valued. One is technology and IT. Many companies in IT understand the need for data security and data privacy. So they are willing to invest in data protection. And that means they will need certified people to manage their data and resources. Healthcare and biotechnology also, healthcare and biotechnology needs data protection officers, and that sector handles sensitive data. Sensitive data includes medical records, and healthcare handle medical record, patients' data, their history, their health history. So they need enough data protection officers to be able to forestall data breaches. And top on the list is also financial services. Financial services needs data protection, especially the fintech, the banks, the mortgage institutions, the pension institutions. All these companies have listed in this sector have need for data protection. So when you are looking for a job role, these are niches you should look out for because they will value your service and they need your services. So financial services top the list also. On the list, we also have manufacturing and industrial production. They need a lot of data to be able to make forecasts and projections. So they will need data protection officers to be able to assist in this data collection, data processing, data storage. So they also need data protection officers. And all these sectors I am listing have money to pay in terms of large cash to pay data protection officers that are certified. We also have energy and renewable resources. They work with a whole lot of data to make their forecast and their progression. And also, data protection officers will have a good working environment in these niches I have itemized and mentioned. Then we also have the retail and consumer goods. They also collect data. Take, for instance, you walk into a supermarket, you are going to use your card most of the time because cash payment is something that people are avoiding. And when they collect your card, they are going to collect your card details. So they need people to be able to give them a knowledge on how to forestall data breaches, cyber attack, because they collect banking information through the POS device they use. So that is also a niche you should also look at if you want to start a career in data protection. And we have real estate and construction. Good. Real estate construction also need data. And these data they collect have to be properly handled, have to be properly stored. And most times they archive some of this information. So they need people who understand data retention. And these are skill set data protection officers have. And we also have hospitality and tourism. The hotels, they need data. because they need people to come and lodge in their facilities. And they also need to send that SMS, most especially during public holidays and festive period. They also need to understand how to use digital marketing in line with the Data Protection Act. So you will be valued in the hospitality and tourism sector. And we also have the education sector. So the education sector, we need data protection officers for training, capacity building, also managing those institutions and building curriculum that data protection officers can use to improve in their career progression. So these are sectors and niches I feel if you are looking for a job, you should look out for. I'm not ruling out other sectors, but from the data and analysis we have, these are sectors that are very, very lucrative for data protection officers. We also have aviation, the airlines, they collect data. And when you want to book, you also need to use your card details at some point. And all this data they collect have to be properly secured and kept. And the best person who has this knowledge to guide the organization and build a framework for data collection, that is the data protection officer. So they need to employ. So many people will ask, so how do we get the job? It's very easy, and I'm still going to talk about that. But let me just give you a glimpse. Many of these companies in Nigeria have no certified data protection officer. What they've done is just to move someone from compliance to manage the data protection. So if you have certifications related to data protection, you can hit that job role as their certified data protection officer. And just as I said in the beginning of today's training, this is focused for the employees. We also have special one for people who want to take up consulting role as data protection officers. So the NGOs, they also collect data to be able to carry out their activities. For them to disburse funds to beneficiaries or provide care to beneficiaries, they need data. So they also need data protection officers. And we also have accounting and audit firms. They also need data protection officers due to the nature of work they do. So whenever you are looking for a job in data protection, you should look out for businesses within these sectors have itemized. So one error people usually make is they feel that they must get the role as a data protection officer when writing for job offers and all those things. No, if you have a certificate in data protection, there are other roles you can get within organizations. You could be a cybercrime investigator, could be a chief privacy officer, you could be the chief information security officer, you could also be a security consultant where you work as a freelance person to the organization. There will be a training focused on that. And you could also be the security administrator. You could also be the penetration tester if you have in-depth technical knowledge on data protection. You could also be the security software developer or the security specialist. So the roles in data protection is not just limited to the data protection officer option. But there are 5 skills you should possess if you want to take up this role, because whenever you write your CV, there are things people look at for to see if you fit. So what are those 5 skills you should have to be able to hit that dream job in data protection? One is good understanding of the laws. Understanding the Nigeria Data Protection Act is very important if you are looking for companies in Nigeria to give you that offer, because they want people who understand the law so that they don't breach any of the provisions of the law. However, you should not just stop at the Nigeria Data Protection Act. You should also look at the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. You should try to have understanding of the GDPR, because most businesses in Nigeria process records that belongs to Europeans, especially the multinationals. And funny enough, is these multinationals that have the money to pay certified data protection officers. So you need to understand the GDPR, and you also need to understand the CCPA, the California Consumer Privacy Act, because you'll be interfacing with companies in the US, most especially when you deal with software. You understand the Facebook, the X, formerly Twitter, all these companies, some of their laws are guided with the GDPR and the CCPA. So when you share data with them, you need to understand those legislations so that your company don't find them need to pay any penalty for data breaches. You also need to understand security analysis. Take, for example, you are the DPO for an organization that experienced a data breach. You should be able to analyze how that data breach occurred and know what to do at every point in the incidents reporting phase. So you need to understand security analysis, in-depth understanding, not just the shallow understanding. If not, your organization may just find need to get other people to fit that role. So you need to have in-depth security analysis. You also need to know how to investigate data breach, you understand, as a professional, so that peradventure it's an insider threat, you can detect it. If it's an external threat, you can detect it, and also work with the NDPC in the data breach investigation process. So you need to know the obligations of the data controller, the obligations of the data processor, and all third parties, so that you can be seen as a professional. And you need to have a critical and quick thinking, because most of these things happen without preparation. So you have to respond fast. And that's why it's better to be proactive than reactive. So you have to have critical thinking at that stage. Then good communication. Communication is key. You need to know how to communicate, present matters in a way and manner that it can be easily comprehended, because most of the people you'll be dealing with may not have understanding on data protection. So when you start using key terms without breaking it down for them to understand it, it now becomes a language barrier. So you need to know the language of data protection, but also know how to explain it so that even someone who doesn't have a formal education can understand what you are talking about. So those are the top skill sets for data protection officers. Now we look at the certifications required. One of the key certifications is the Certified Information Privacy Professional, the CIPP. We also have the Certified Information Privacy Manager, the CIPM. We also have the Certified Information Privacy Technologist. We also have the Healthcare Information Security and Privacy Practitioner. That is very relevant for the medical and healthcare sector. And we also have the Certified Data Privacy Solutions Engineer. And we have the Data Protection and Privacy Academy Certified Data Protection Officer course. We offer all these certifications. So if you need to enroll in any of these certifications, you are free to contact us, subscribe to our channel, follow us on all our social media handles to get more information. So now, what will be the job description of an ideal data protection officer? One key job description is being the point of contact between the regulatory body, which is the NDPC in Nigeria, and other stakeholders. So you'll be the face of the company when it comes to data protection. You also be the one to ensure that the company policies are in line with the Data Protection Act in the various jurisdictions. So for example, you are the DPO of a multinational. You also need to make sure that their policies align with the GDPR, with the CCPA, with the Nigeria Data Protection Act, and every other country they operate. Once they have a domesticated data protection law, you need to align those policies to resonate with that. You also need to make sure that there's training for other staff, and make sure that the training curriculum meets the expectations of the business. And also, you also need to inform and advise your organization when there's need for software to be updated, where there's need for hardware to be retired when they've reached their useful life cycle. So these are some of the key job descriptions. So at this point, I'm going to and create room for comments, questions before we wrap up. If you have any question, we can bring you on stage and get your own opinion, or you can drop it on the comment section so that we can answer those key questions. Okay, so why those comments are coming? So let's look at the responsibilities of data protection officers. One key responsibility is expert advice and education of employees, you understand, and also third parties, not just the business alone, but you also need to educate third parties that deal with the business on data collection, data processing, data storage, and archiving data. Also, reviewing your policies, drafting new policies as your business adapts with new technology, artificial intelligence. All these have to be reflected in your privacy policy. Also, you need to make sure that audits are conducted as it's enshrined in the Data Protection Act. Your annual audit are done, and you, as the DPO, can also carry out internal audit, most likely on a quarterly basis, and also get management to see reasons to take actions at every non-conformity discovered. So with this, I think we've come to the end of episode 1. But feel free to ask any question before we end today's training. I also want to use the opportunity to appreciate everyone who made out time to come. And feel free to follow our social media and drop your comments and questions. Thank you very much.